1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3.
Good morning and welcome to the Maryland Public Service Commission's administrative meeting for September 28th, 2022. Before I begin today, I'd like to recognize one of our newest employees at the Commission, Dr. Pam Coates. Is she here? There she is, standing up. Dr. Coates, welcome. She's a new economist in our Telecommunications, Gas, and Water Division. She holds a PhD in economics from the University of Maryland, College Park, so yet another TERP that we have on staff here. She has previous experience working for utility on the demand side management programs and a software company catching insurance fraud. And she served as assistant professor of economics for multiple colleges and universities. We're excited for her to join our team today. She's going to be working under the supervision of Ben Baker, and we're looking forward to having yet another PhD economist on staff. So Dr. Coates, welcome. We do have meeting minutes to approve from our last meeting on September 14th, 2 weeks ago. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
The meeting minutes are approved. I would also just like to note we do have the assistant director position currently vacant and posted for our transportation division, a very important position under the report of Director Mark Gorman. That position closes at midnight tonight, so if you know anybody who would be interested and qualified for the assistant director of transportation, please check that posting. With that, good morning, Mr. Secretary.
Morning, Mr. Chairman. There are 3 items on today's consent agenda. Item 1 consists of revised tariff pages from Charter FiberLink Maryland 2 LLC. Item number 2 is a notice of transfer of control from various entities. And item number 3 is a request from Select Energy Partners LLC to cancel its electricity supplier license.
Thank you. Seeing no questions from my colleagues, with respect to item number 1, I would move that we accept the tariff revisions for filing with an effective date of September 15th, 2022. With respect to item number 2, I move that we note the transaction. And with respect to item number 3, I move that we approve the cancellation request. The vote begins with Commissioner Bubar.
Aye.
Commissioner Linton.
Aye.
Commissioner O'Donnell.
Aye.
And Commissioner Richard.
Aye.
I vote aye. The motions are approved.
Mr. Chairman, item number 4 on the administrative meeting agenda is a request from Caberton Solar Chesapeake LLC for a COMA waiver for the purpose of allowing co-location of community solar projects for low and moderate income customers.
Thank you. We'll begin with our staff. Good morning.
Good morning, Chairman and Commissioners. Catherine Moriarty on behalf of Staff Council. Caberton Solar Chesapeake LLC seeks a waiver of the co-location requirements under COMAR 20.62.03.04A1 and 4 in order to construct 2 2-megawatt community solar energy generating systems, the Chesapeake 1 and the Chesapeake 2 project, at the same address under the same subscriber number. The Chesapeake 1 project is a PSC-approved 2-megawatt community solar energy generating system. Chamberton anticipates that it will enroll 200 residential customers, 30% of whom will be LMI at the facility. The project as proposed for Chesapeake 1, before the waiver was requested, has no LMI requirements by virtue of it being in an open category. Applicant seeks to build a second community solar energy generating system at the same address, the Chesapeake 2 project. This community solar energy generating system would be dedicated to LMI customers, of which applicant anticipates 200 residential customers, all of whom will be LMI. Absent a waiver under COMAR 20.62.03.04A1 and 4, Chesapeake 2 cannot be built at the same location because co-location rules prohibit more than one project on a single or adjacent parcel. To qualify for the co-location waiver under COMAR 20.62.03.04A1 and 4, both community solar energy generating systems, the Chesapeake 1 and Chesapeake 2, would be required to serve only low and moderate income subscribers. Under COMAR 20.62.03.08A1, an electric company may not accept a community solar energy generating system project of 500 kilowatts or greater that is proposed to be located on the same or an adjacent parcel as an existing or proposed community solar energy generating system project of 500 kilowatts or greater, which is located in its service territory and is owned by any subscriber, organization, or affiliate thereof. COMAR 20.62.03.08A4 further provides that one or more subscriber organizations may not construct multiple facilities on a single parcel of property. A possible exception to this requirement is COMAR 20.62.03.08E, which provides as follows. Co-location of low and moderate income projects. A subscriber organization may petition the Commission for a waiver of Section A1 and 4 of this regulation for the construction of projects with a combined capacity to not exceeding 4 megawatts and which serve 100% of kilowatt output to low or moderate income subscribers. The Commission may, in its discretion, grant the waiver for good cause shown. Chesapeake 2 clearly falls within the prohibitions of COMAR 20.62.03.08A1 because the project is greater in size than 500 kilowatts and proposed to be located on the same parcel as a proposed community solar energy generating system project greater than 500 kilowatts and is owned by the same subscriber organization. As grounds for the required waiver, applicant advances 5 points to support a finding of good cause. First, Chesapeake 1 has a reserved 30% of its 2 megawatt capacity for LMI customers and will be moved into DPL's active queue at the beginning of program year 6, January 2024. Second, the special exception granted by Cecil County anticipates multiple facilities, and thus no additional zoning approval would be needed prior to the construction of Chesapeake 2. Third, the addition for 2 megawatts for an additional 200 LMI subscribers is needed in Cecil County, where although DPL has 8 LMI projects in its service territory, only 1 LMI project is operational at this time. According to the applicant, this lack of completed construction is due to the difficulty of obtaining financing for these types of projects. Applicant asserts that it is firm financing for the project and will complete development of Chesapeake 2 as soon as the request for a waiver is granted. Fourth, applicant is supported by the community for both projects. And finally, co-location of the Chesapeake 2 project will result in savings of approximately $150,000. Staff is concerned a request for an exemption of co-location where projects are LMI will result in a flurry of 4 megawatt community solar energy generating systems for LMI customers. Subscriber organizations have had difficulty finding sufficient subscribers for these types of facilities in the past. However, the regulations now specifically authorize these types of requests, provided that both projects be expressly limited to LMI subscribers per COMAR, which requires the projects serve 100% kilowatt output to low or moderate income subscribers. This limitation is defined and express. Staff recommends Chaberton's waiver of the general co-location requirement be granted, contingent upon Chaberton subscribing 100% of LMI subscribers for both its Chesapeake 1 and Chesapeake 2 projects, and requiring Chaberton and its successors to provide written certification to the utility prior to operating on an annual basis thereafter, that 100% of its customers qualify as LMI. Staff is here to answer any questions. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Moriarty. Counsel for Chamberton Solar Chesapeake LLC.
Yes, good morning, Commissioners. Maggie Witherup on behalf of the applicant, Chaberton Chesapeake Solar LLC. With me today is Stefano Ratti, who's the president and CEO of Chaberton. And at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Ratti, who would like to make a statement to the Commission.
Thank you, Ms. Witherup. If you could please state your name and title for the record.
Yes, my name is Stefano Ratti. I'm the founder and CEO of Chaberton Energy and also a longtime resident of Maryland. Chaberton Energy is a Maryland-based company focused on the development of community solar projects. We have a team of 25 professionals with projects in several states, but Maryland remains our primary state. I'd like to thank the commissioners for the opportunity to come today and present the merit of our Chesapeake project and the benefits resulting from co-locating a community solar project 100% devoted to low to moderate income subscribers. I would also like to thank the Commission staff who have been reviewing this project and provided their recommendation. As a Maryland-based company, we feel strongly that the benefits of solar should be realized by the residents of Maryland and even more specifically by low to moderate income subscribers, who are disproportionately affected by rising electricity prices. In particular, the three cities in Cecil County with the highest poverty rates, Charlestown, Elkton, and Northeast, are located nearby the project and would be ideal recipients for the electricity savings brought about by our Chesapeake project. We look forward to the opportunity of bringing these projects to fruition. Thank you for your time and attention for this matter.
Thank you, sir. Do my colleagues have questions of staff or the party? Commissioner O'Donnell.
I actually,
Go ahead.
I'm sorry, I did want to make a few remarks in addition to Mr. Ratty's comments, just addressing the waiver request. If you'd like me to do those now or wait until no questions, that's fine.
Please proceed.
Okay, thank you. This is a waiver request of the co-location requirement under COMAR 20.62.03.08A. We do think that we have established good cause for the waiver. We recognize that is the requirement to grant the waiver request. I'm not going to repeat everything that was in our written request, but I did want to make a few points and just elaborate a little bit on the good cause elements. Number one is that this site is appropriate for having two community solar locations, community solar projects. Cecil County has recently enacted a very restrictive ordinance on solar projects, and this was one that had already gone through the process and had been approved for multiple project locations. It was scaled down from originally more than two projects on the same location, and there are very few sites in Cecil County that can meet all of the requirements of the new ordinance, which went into effect. And so we do think that this is a unique site that is appropriate for the two co-located projects. As Mr. Roddy said, we think it's also important to meet the need for low and moderate income community solar projects in Cecil County. The nearest city to this project is Elkton, which has a rate of people in poverty of 26% and a median income of only $54,000. And so, as staff counsel indicated, there is only one LMI project in Delmarva service territory so far that is operational, and so this will help to meet the needs of low and moderate income residents in the county. We do have local community support for the project, both at the county level and local citizens. And it will result in cost savings because of the difficulty in LMI projects being able to meet financial margins. Because of the reduced rates, it is hard to get these projects going. And I think that was one of the reasons that the General Assembly recognized a policy preference for encouraging low and moderate income projects. And the reason why the Commission enacted this waiver request is the ability to encourage more low and moderate income projects. With respect to the waiver request, we do appreciate staff's recommendation to grant the waiver request. However, we do disagree slightly with the interpretation of the waiver regulation, which is COMAR 20.62.03.08E. And our request was actually that the second project only be 100% LMI. The first project, Chesapeake 1, has already been approved, and Chaberton has agreed to commit 30% of that project to serve low and moderate income subscribers. But our request was that the second project only be 100% LMI, and we believe that the regulation allows that. If you look at the language of the regulation, it says that a subscriber organization may petition the Commission for a waiver of A1 and 4 for the construction of projects with a combined capacity not exceeding 4 megawatts and which serve 100% of the kilowatt output to low or moderate income subscribers. And I think the important word in that regulation is the word construction in E1. And I think, logically, if you think about this project in particular, but also other projects, if you had a first community solar project that was already constructed, and now with the waiver regulation, they would be allowed to co-locate a project if the commission grants them the waiver. But if the first project was already constructed and had subscribers, it would not be reasonable to force the company to go back to that first project and require them to serve 100% of low and moderate income customers. In this case, Chaberton has already projected its finances, obtained financing, and has investors based on the 30% LMI model. And so our request was that the second project only be 100% LMI, and that the first project be allowed to serve only 30% LMI. Again, we think that is allowed by the regulation. I think that does serve the General Assembly's policy intent of encouraging low and moderate income projects, but also doesn't interfere with the reasonable expectations of parties who come in and have projects already in the queue and already underway. And so with that modification to staff's recommendation, we agree with staff's recommendation. And now we're here to address any questions that the commissioners may have.
Thank you, Ms. Witherup. So I am looking at Section E of Title 20, Subtitle 62, Chapter 3, Regulation 8, titled Co-location of Low and Moderate Income Projects. Ms. Moriarty, how do you respond to Ms. Witherup's argument that only Chesapeake 2 should be held to the 100% LMI standard? And did you say 30% for Chesapeake 1?
Yes, they have committed to 30% LMI right now for Chesapeake 1.
So Ms. Witherup states that it's not in conflict with this relatively new regulation. What is staff's position?
Right, well, staff agrees with the applicant, that 2 LMI projects would, meet the LMI need in Cecil County, and even more if both projects, per the requirement of the waiver, are 100% LMI.
Yes, that would make sense.
So, and Chesapeake 1 isn't constructed yet. And the LMI program is limited in capacity. So this, recent new waiver to encourage the development of LMI development is very specific and requires, very explicit requirements, which is capacity not exceed 4 megawatts, and that these projects serve 100% kilowatt output to low or moderate income subscribers. So we read that as both projects should be at 100% LMI to be granted this waiver of the general rule that you can't co-locate projects.
So, Ms. Witherup, Section E1, Romanet 2 states that the co-location of LMI projects serve 100% of kilowatt-hour output to low or moderate income subscribers. Ms. Moriarty is saying that's as clear as day and should apply to both Chesapeake 1 and Chesapeake 2. Can you restate your argument as to why a difference should be permitted with respect to Chesapeake 1?
Sure. It has to do with the interpretation of the construction of projects in E1. And my view is that regulation is interpreted to apply to the new projects that are asking for the waiver. And E1 subparagraph little I refers to both projects, obviously, because they cannot have a combined capacity exceeding the 4 megawatts. And little Roman numeral 2 is that projects have to serve 100% kilowatt output to low or moderate income subscribers, which is going back to the word projects from E1, which we're interpreting to refer to the projects that are applying for the waiver.
So looking back at A1 and A4 of this regulation, on regulation number 8, help me understand, is it your position that 8A 1 and 4 do not apply to Chesapeake 1?
That's correct, because it is a community solar project that is, it would normally be subject to A1 and 4, which would prohibit a second project being co-located there if it weren't for the waiver regulation in E.
Ms. Moriarty, it's interpretation of the regulation here, because Section E at the very end of this regulation does make a earlier reference to Section A. Can you poke holes in Ms. Witherup's argument as to why Chesapeake 1 is captured?
Well, Chesapeake 1 is captured because it otherwise would exceed the capacity limit.
500 kWh limit.
Yes.
Sorry, Ms. Witherup, what is the combined capacity of both projects?
It's 4 megawatts. Each one is 2 megawatts.
Okay, I'll turn to my colleagues for questions as I digest. Commissioner O'Donnell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Let me first go to staff. Can staff state the general basis for the co-location prohibitions generally for these CSEG projects?
Yes, so my understanding is that two community solar projects cannot be developed on the same or adjacent parcel by the same owner or affiliate subscriber organization. That's the general rule. So no co-location of multiple projects.
But I'm asking, what was the basis for that? Why do we have that prohibition?
I believe that was because there's a limited capacity for the development of these types of projects. We want to ensure that the projects would remain community projects.
Wasn't it also partially because we were having siting problems with local governments who thought that our preemptive siting authority was threatening their land use decisions locally, and wasn't there actually activity in the General Assembly to remove our preemptive siting authority? Wasn't that the general context of having these prohibitions put in place in the first place?
Yes, that was also part of the context. There's a lot of context to these community solar energy generating system rules.
Sure. And
Whole rulemaking.
We've had to fend off, for good reason, attempts to make incursions into our preemptive siting authority, because it's my opinion, just my opinion, that if the commission were to lose preemptive siting authority generally, that we may never cite anything in this state again, for the same reason we have such a hard time citing interstate transmission projects. Similar reasons. Because of one local entity having veto authority, effectively. Okay, so we've established that. So now we have a waiver to that general provision of prohibition, and we got a request before us. Staff seems to be concerned about a flurry of waivers coming in under this wire. Can you expound on that? Why are you worried about? Do you think we're going to get a flurry? Does staff believe we're going to get a flurry of waiver requests? I see Ms. Garofalo sitting behind you, and Ms. Garofalo has had a flurry of waiver requests due to the frozen tundra of the state of Maryland, and I haven't heard that excuse justification much lately, but
I mean, that was a concern of staff, that a lot of people would just tack on 2 more megawatts of generation to different projects and do 100% LMI. And that's a possibility if we interpret the waiver that way.
Okay, so your recommendation is we approve these, but only approve these if 100% of both projects are LMI.
Yes.
Okay. What if Chesapeake 1 was operational at 30% right now? What would staff say about?
Well, they don't qualify for this waiver then.
Staff would say they wouldn't qualify for this this co-location waiver.
Right,
If they
unless they're willing to change their operations to operate with 100% LMI subscribers.
Okay, so that's important for me to understand staff's position. So saying that Chesapeake 1 hasn't been built yet clarifies that, in that they have the chance to change that now to make it compliant with the waiver provisions as staff interprets them.
Yes.
Okay. Let me thank you for that, Ms. Moriarty. Let me turn to the company. Can the company talk to me about the financing of both Chesapeake 1 and Chesapeake 2, how that's going? So a lot of these waiver requests generally for these projects, I believe, are rooted in, although we get all types of and manner of excuse justification, are rooted in the inability of companies to actually secure the financing for their projects. Talk to me about your company's ability to finance these projects.
My understanding is that Chesapeake financing for both projects is secured. I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Ratty for that one.
Yes, the financing for Chesapeake 1 is secured under the assumption that it will be a 30% LMI project. And then we're in the process currently of financing, and I think we'll be successful to finance a second project that's 100% LMI. If we were to do 2 projects that are 100% LMI, that'll be significantly more difficult.
So you would have problems getting the financing if staff's recommendation to make Chesapeake 1 100% LMI, you would have problems.
It would be more difficult, yes. Yes.
Okay. I guess that's all, Mr. Chairman. This is not a clear question to me. And I don't know, maybe this is a candidate for some clarification in the regs eventually, but that's not what's before us right now. But it's not real clear what we would do with the waiver request should the circumstances be a little bit different. So, but I'll yield. Thank you.
Ms. Witherup, could I have one follow-up question?
Sure.
The reg at the very end, so that's 8E2, says the commission may, in its discretion, grant the waiver request for good cause shown, and you've told us your good cause. Mm-hmm. But if you look directly above 2, there's 2 requirements. You have to have a combined capacity not exceeding 4 megawatts, which is true. You don't exceed 4 megawatts. But then it says and which serves 100% of KWH output to LMI income subscribers. That and requires 100% output go to LMI. Would that not apply to both?
Well, as you said, I think that goes to the interpretation of the regulation, and I do think it could be interpreted either way. Our interpretation is that construction of projects is talking about the second project that would be co-located with the first project.
Not the original project.
That's correct.
Did not cause the need for a co-location situation. And apologize for the repetition, but can you show me where in the regulations your supposition would support that argument?
It's just the plain language of the regulation, and I think it goes to construction of projects at the end of E1. And I think, the use of the term construction is talking about construction of the new project in our interpretation.
Some may read that as construction of both projects.
I do think it can be interpreted that way.
Right. Had it said the construction of the second project or construction of both, it just says construction of projects. We've had a number of these interesting cases, interpretation recently. I'm going to yield to my colleagues for additional questions on this narrow matter. Commissioner Bubar.
Thank you. I'm not going to ask a question on the interpretation. I had some similar questions to Commissioner O'Donnell, so thank you for pulling that thread. Can you talk a little bit about, do you feel confident that there will be enough customers for the additional capacity? Because there was some notes from the staff that there have been some issues in the past with customers signing up. So can you just talk a little bit about addressing that issue and what your strategy might be for encouraging new customers?
Yeah, I do think that has been an issue, and one of the reasons why this commission has enacted this waiver regulation to try and encourage the development of more LMI facilities and more projects, because people have had trouble getting LMI subscribers. I do think there is a need in Elkton in particular and in that area of Cecil County, and so they have looked at the statistics of the area, and they do think they are going to be able to get enough LMI subscribers to make the second project 100% LMI and to have the first project continue to be 30% LMI. I'm not sure what specific marketing efforts they've gone beyond just analyzing the geographic area and the statistics, but they do feel confident that they will be able to get 100% LMI subscribers for Chesapeake 2, in addition to the 30% for Chesapeake 1.
Thank you. And I guess maybe I do have a question on the interpretation, but it's really with 8E2, which says the commission may, in its discretion, grant the waiver request for good cause shown. And I'm wondering if, without clarifying the interpretation question, the good cause has been demonstrated.
Sure. Well, good cause is not defined in the regulations, as the commissioners are aware. I do think we've set forth the reasons that we think constitutes good cause and why it makes sense to have a second project, a community solar project, located at this same facility, the same location as Chesapeake 1. I don't think every parcel is going to have the same geographic issues or the same community support and the same particular constraints as what we see in Cecil County right now. So I think I'm skeptical that there is going to be a flurry of requests for waivers for 4 megawatt co-located community solar projects, at least in Cecil County. I don't see that as the case because of the zoning ordinance restrictions on community solar projects in that county, and the limited number of parcels that are going to be able to meet those requirements. So that's one, I think, very significant reason why it makes sense to put it here as opposed to somewhere else. And if the commission decides not to grant the waiver, then nothing else will happen at this location.
Can you just clarify, when were the new zoning requirements put in place? It was obviously after the request for the first project was approved?
That's correct. It was the end of 2021, so very recently.
Okay. Thank you.
Commissioner Richard.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Moarty, I'm just trying to go back to, from my perspective, obviously, as one of the commissioners involved in drafting the regulation, the interpretation I'm hearing from the company was certainly my intent, and I think goes back to the intent of the statute itself. We have a number of other statutes that require us to get to 14.5% to meet our RPS from solar. We have an increased net metering cap that we have plenty of room to get to. We also have this statute that created community solar and, wanted, to look at all the benefits of community solar to, the maximum number of Marylanders who rented or were in a a circumstance that they could not have solar panels on their roof, and with a specific emphasis on trying to get as many low and moderate income as possible. So from that, we did, create just recently this additional regulation, and we gave ourselves this good cause shown. Now, that authority comes from our statute. Is that correct? The ability to again make some of these decisions and give us some flexibility for good cause shown. Is
Yes.
that right?
Yes, it's within your discretion to find good cause shown, the commission's discretion.
Okay. So, I mean, if there, we do have cases like this that are, within the public interest and seem to meet a lot of our other, statutory responsibilities granted to us by the legislature, then, again, does that fall within the bands of our authority that are given to us from the statute?
Yes, I think that falls within your commission authority per the Public Utility Act. I just, and I understand that your intent in developing the regulations was to encourage the development of LMI, and staff reads this as, by requiring both facilities to operate 100% LMI, that again furthers your intent of developing LMI.
Right. And also we are very, concerned about some of the problems, the complications that have been faced by the project developers at the county level. So, in circumstances like this, where we have the full support of the community, and we have one of those rare occasions when actually we get, I don't mean to be facetious, but again, we have this wonderful situation where the county is fully in support of using this larger than this larger tract. This seems to fall within that kind of good cause shown. At least, again, one of the reasons I was, supportive, and I was pleased when we put this, this new regulation into place. So, again, that does seem to fall within, again, all the concerns we were trying to face in our most recent rulemaking. And again, I go back to, we have a circumstance here where we have this large tract of land that will not be fully utilized, and it's a tract that's fully supported by the county. So, again, do you think that falls within the bounds of our statutory authority in finding good cause shown in support of a project like this?
Yes, look, you have statutory authority to determine what
Okay.
is good cause.
Okay. I think that's really all I have to ask right now. As far as maybe just one other question, I know we always just use LMI as one long, but there is that modern income element. Can you remind me, what do we define as moderate income for the purposes of LMI?
I don't have that definition before me, but, generally it's different levels of the poverty. It's defined by the poverty level.
Okay, so it's a moderate, but it obviously moves toward more of the middle. Obviously, when we
Moderate.
talk about LMI,
Yes.
we're talking about a larger population of Marylanders than just a low income. Is that correct?
Yes, it's low
Okay.
income and moderate income.
Okay, so when we were going to, I guess, your request, or not your request, your recommendation on verification, how do they go about, I think we provided some guidance now how we identify low income, but have we provided specific guidance at this point how we would, not only provide it on a one-time basis, but on an ongoing basis, a moderate income customer?
Yes, there are, I believe, the ruling on verification requirements and ways that different customers prove how they meet these categories.
Okay, so you believe we do have
Yes.
specific guidance on, okay. All right, well, I think those are all the questions I have right now, and, again, I'm hoping that we will exercise our statutory authority here for good cause shown for this project. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner Linton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning. I just had a couple of questions. One, not related to the question of the interpretation. I'll come back to that. But I just wanted to make sure for the company, you stated that you were comfortable with all of the staff's recommendations, with the exception of the interpretation part. But the staff's recommendation also included the requirement that you certify annually to the utility company that this project, Chesapeake 2, if approved in the manner you've proposed, is serving 100% LMI customers. Are you claiming that you're also comfortable with that requirement?
Yes, we are comfortable with that requirement.
Okay, thank you. And just quickly for the commission staff, do we know if, is the company, by company I mean the utility, are they comfortable with receiving those certifications and I guess, for lack of a better word, monitoring or policing them?
I haven't spoken to DPL about that, so
Okay.
I can't say, but maybe the company knows.
Okay, well, we will assume, in this case, silence is acceptance. Thank you. In terms of questions regarding the interpretation of the regulation, for the company, just so that I'm clear, Chesapeake 1, the status of it now is that it's fully subscribed, and it's not fully subscribed.
It is not fully subscribed yet. It is reserved. It has reserved capacity in the DPLQ, and it is committed to be 30% LMI.
Okay, so just to be clear, the consumers have not been enrolled. You don't have subscribers at this point.
That is correct. They do not yet have subscribers.
Okay. I'm just trying to make sure I understand the existing status of Chesapeake 1. I understand it's built. Is that correct? Or?
It is not built.
It's
I
not
was
built.
using construction of a project as a hypothetical example to demonstrate the interpretation of the regulations, but Chesapeake 1 itself is not yet built.
Okay. Well, in that case, then help me to understand what the differences are then between 1 and 2. I mean, as I know, understand 1. Are they? Well, I mean, what are the differences? Is 1 built? 1 isn't built. It's not subscribed. So, in terms of the construction language in the statute, where are we finding the distinctions between the two projects?
They are intended to be two separate projects. The term construction of the projects I was referring to is in the language of the regulation, and that's the basis for my interpretation or our interpretation that it should apply only to the second project that is seeking the waiver of the co-location prohibition, and not the first project. But Chesapeake 1 has already been approved by this commission. It's has reserve capacity in the Delmarva queue. It has financing based on the assumption that it would be 30% LMI customers, and they're working towards construction, I believe, by the end of 2023. Is that correct? For that project.
Okay, so in terms of construction, you're not talking about steel in the ground and panels collecting sunlight, but just that the approvals have come from the commission. The local government has approved and supported it, but it still hasn't gone through some of the other phases. So for Chesapeake 2, we are even further behind?
That's correct. For Chesapeake 2, it's just hypothetical at this point. We are seeking this waiver to allow Chaberton to co-locate Chesapeake 2 on the same or an adjacent parcel next to Chesapeake 1.
Okay.
If you don't grant the waiver, Chesapeake 2 will not exist and will not happen.
Okay, and so just to also be clear then, when you say you have public support for the project, Chesapeake 1's not in the ground yet, so was that public support from the community and from the local officials? Is that focused on Chesapeake 2 as it's been described to us today, or is it that they support the project as a whole, Chesapeake 1, and they are somewhat familiar with what Chesapeake 2 will do?
Yeah, when it was originally presented to the local jurisdiction, it was originally a much larger project and included multiple projects co-located on the same parcel. And so that was what went through the original special exception process. And then in the course of the county amending its zoning ordinance to make solar projects more restrictive in the county. The project itself reduced the scope of what they were proposing to the county.
I'm sorry,
But-
you said the project, you mean the company?
The company, yes.
Okay, I'm
Yes, the
sorry.
company presented on its site plan multiple projects on the same location, and that was what went through the special exception process. And the county was originally supportive of having multiple projects located on this same parcel. Even more than just the 2 projects that we're proposing now. They were originally okay with more than that, and then they amended their zoning ordinance to reduce the availability of community solar projects on based on acreage and other factors. And so they have reduced it to just 2 projects. And the county and community are supportive of having these 2 co-located projects on this parcel.
Okay. All right, thank you. That's all the questions I have. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. I think that was a long way of Ms. Witherup saying yes.
Yes.
We'll return to Commissioner O'Donnell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Can staff counsel or someone from staff give me a sense of how much land 2 2-megawatt projects, solar projects, will require? You don't have to be exact, approximately.
Well, I don't know for sure, and I will be corrected. I would say 5 acres.
Or the company, yes, sir.
Yeah,
Yeah, each 2-megawatt project takes about 10 to 12 acres of land.
Okay.
In
So
this
you,
case.
you're talking about 25 to 30 acres total for these 2 projects.
Yeah, the combined between the 2 be 20 to 25. I don't have the exact number, but in that range.
Okay, that gives me a better sense of what we're talking about here. Thank you. Mr. Chairman, just by way of comment, it looks like we're proceeding towards a disposition here. I do still have some concerns regarding setting precedent on this matter. I do commend the company for helping us and striving for us to meet our goals to serve low and moderate income customers with our community solar program. So thank you. And I think it's commendable, and I share Commissioner Richards' desire to further attaining those goals. However, I have concerns that these types of developments, should we receive a flurry of them, as staff has expressed a concern, could present to us existential threats to our preemptive siting authorities. The ag, and the reason I asked the land use question, the ag community across the state, although the urban areas don't feel it, the rural areas certainly feel it, whether it's Cecil County or Calvert County or anywhere else in the rural parts of the state. The ag community and others, the land preservation folks, have great concerns about this land use, and we're trying to balance a lot of interests. Our land preservation state policy, our renewable energy state policy, a lot of state policies. And I don't want us to lock in on precedent based on this worthy project or proposal. And so, Mr. Chairman, I say all that to say I'm going to register, should the commission decide to offer an amendment or a motion to approve these projects now, I'm gonna vote no, to register the fact that I don't think we should be setting precedent. In my mind, we're not setting precedent on this, and I want the record to reflect a no vote to indicate that there was some concern about setting precedent in this regard.
Thank you, Commissioner O'Donnell. I hear a crackle. I would respond that in one sense, every time the commission takes a vote, we do set precedent. Although in those situations where we grant waiver based on cause shown, those instances are always case specific and cannot be held for presidential
I
support.
would agree with that, Mr. Chairman, but I will say that in our flurry of waivers that we receive generally with solar developments, whether they're construction deadlines or otherwise, it is always cited to us and recast to us our previous decisions to hand these things out like Halloween candy.
I do not disagree on that point. As Commissioner O'Donnell stated, there is a balancing of interest, land preservation, renewable portfolio standard, support for solar development, support for community solar, and support for our lower and moderate income communities. I do recognize that financing on Chesapeake 1 has already been obtained based on the assumption of a 30% LMI subscription, with this second project being a 100% subscription to low and moderate income customers. We already have a queue position with respect to project number 1. We don't have a queue position with respect to project number 2 because it's hypothetical at the moment, as I understand, and the PSC has already approved the Chesapeake project. Reviewing our new regs, and they're relatively new, we only promulgated them last year. I do find that the stronger interpretation is of Chamberton Solar. My concern with the term construction of the projects would effectively require that second project to link to the first project and require both projects, without exception, to be 100% subscribed to LMI. In every case where we would have a second co-located LMI project, the first project would be modified and be required to subscribe 100% of the LMI customers, and that's the situation that we are presented with here. I do not believe that was the intent of this commissioner, to effectively infect the first project with a requirement that would only be applied to the second. This is precedential. This is the first time that Regulation 8 Echo 2 has been brought before this commission. But I in my position, the two projects, the second project could not be in a position to modify the requirements of the first prior approved project, especially since it's already moving forward. We've heard other arguments that, while not determinative, is instructive, including the fact that the local community supports the larger project, which now we know would take up somewhere in the neighborhood of 25 acres of land total. So I will propose a motion to my colleagues that we grant the company's request for a waiver consistent with the company's interpretation of the regulation. Accordingly, I would move that we grant the company the requested waiver of the general co-location requirement under the language of COMAR 20.62.3.8E, contingent upon the company subscribing 100% low to moderate income subscribers for its Chesapeake 2 project, and the company and any successors providing written certification that 100% of its customers qualify as to low to moderate income for Chesapeake 2 to the utility prior to operating on an annual basis thereafter. The vote begins with Commissioner Bubar.
Thank you. On balance, I support what the company has done and moving forward with 100% on LMI on the second project, 30% on the first. I appreciate, I was not here when the regulations were published. I appreciate the understanding that my colleagues have provided. So with that, I vote aye.
Commissioner Linton.
Aye.
Commissioner O'Donnell.
For the reasons previously stated, Mr. Chairman, I vote no, and I would request that we consider taking projects from a plural word to a singular word and removing the S from projects in the regs, if we're going to be consistent. Thank you.
Noted. Commissioner Richard.
Aye. And then the condition on the annual basis is just for Project 2, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, yes, aye.
I vote aye. The motion is approved.
Mr. Chairman, item number 5 consists of tariff revisions from Baltimore Gas and Electric Company.
Good morning, Mr. Justy.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. Anson Justy on behalf of staff. There's a correction to a table in appendices A and B. In the fourth table, the formula for on-peak dollar per kilowatt hour calculation reads L equals C over total kilowatt hour plus K plus an adjustment. Total kilowatt hour should be replaced by I, representing on-peak kilowatt hours. On July 26, 2022, the Commission issued Order Number 90298, directing the PC44 Rate Design Workgroup on how to proceed with the time of use pilot rate, Schedule RD for the Baltimore Gas and Electric Company, or BGE. On August 30th, 2022, BGE filed proposed tariff changes to comply with the order. The tariff changes adjusted the definition for on-peak hours per the order. This change, along with updated class cost of service data, caused the on-peak and off-peak delivery rates to change for rate years 2 and 3, along with their respective offsets. On-peak delivery rates are expected to decrease by approximately 29% across both years, with the main reason being the additional on-peak usage under the new on-peak hours definition. Off-peak rates are expected to decrease by approximately 5% across both years, and this is affected by the update to the class cost of service data. Also per the order, staff and the company agreed to tariff language changes to state that net metered customers already enrolled in Schedule RD may continue receiving service if they were enrolled in the rate schedule prior to October 1st, 2022. Staff recommends the Commission accept the proposed tariff revisions for filing, including modifications, with an effective date of October 1st, 2022, and that the company file clean copies of the revised tariffs. Thank you. I'm available for questions.
Thank you. Good morning, Council to the Utility.
Good morning, Commissioners. Beverly Sokora on behalf of BGE. I first want to thank staff and pretty much everyone that's been involved with the PC44 Time of Use Working Group. We started this before the pandemic, so it's been a long road to get to the point of putting in place new permanent time of use rates, and we think that it's good to have an option for customers, especially as the industry is changing and moves towards electrification. So we're very pleased that we've gotten to this point, and we look forward to continuing work on different options for customers. The company agrees with staff about the changes to the tariff language, so we will get a compliance filing in shortly.
Thank you. Do my colleagues have questions for the utility? Commissioner Bubar.
Just a clarification, thank you, I agree. Just watching what has been done with PC44, just pretty amazing. And it takes a tremendous skill set up with everybody to be able to stick with it. Just a couple questions. Does BG&E anticipate any issues with customer confusion, given that customers under net metering will not be eligible for the TOU?
We haven't had any so far, but we've been working with staff and internally to come up with talking points for our call center and for various other communications. We are sending a communication out to the customers that are currently on it that won't impact them, but we're hoping that again, with good communication, that won't be too confusing for them.
What do you think the split will be as you go forward? Just curious.
Bring up Ms. Fiery, Lynn Fiery, our manager of rate administration.
Good morning, Lynn Fiery on behalf of BGE. When you say split, Commissioner Bubar, are you referring to the split between net metering and non-net metering?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So during the pilot period, we had a restriction that only 10% of our pilot customers could be net metered. We never hit that 10% threshold. So I don't know if we can assume it'll be similar when we open this up to everyone or not, but it was less than 10% that actually enrolled in the pilot.
Okay, thank you. That's all my questions.
I would just add that we are continuing to work with staff and others on this net metering issue that I think, led to the commission restricting net metering customers from participating. So, hopefully we'll get a resolution on that and that, we can open this back up to net metering customers going forward.
I believe Commissioner Bubar opened a line of questioning for Commissioner Richard on this topic that he feels passionately about.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chairman, for that introduction. I don't know if I can live up to that, but anyway, no, I also want to thank and applaud the company and the work group for all the work that they put into this. I think time of use rates have a great potential to advance state policies and have worked in other states. So, and I kind of want to just add on to just understanding the communication plan. There will be a change at this point in the hours. Is there a plan to communicate that to not only current time of use pilot customers, but also moving forward? And I guess I wanted to also just in this plan, just an overall plan to try to promote this new time of use rate and also ways that customers can be successful under it. I'd just be interested to know what's happening at the work group and at the company right now as we take the next steps into making this a new option for customers.
I am going to bring Ms. Fari back up because she can speak to it much more eloquently than I can.
Yeah, so first of all, as you mentioned, we are communicating this change to existing customers through letters and emails, so they will be aware. But then looking forward to our future education and outreach plans, we're currently developing those. We're working with PEPCO and Delmarva as well as the PC44 work group. So we're going to continue to partner with the work group to kind of develop what that plan should look like, how we should reach out to customers, what tools we can make available to them to make sure they understand what time of use means and how to assess that decision based on how they use energy. So that's still in process. We aren't rolling that out yet. We were focusing on making the changes for existing customers first, and then we're shifting our focus to that bigger outreach.
Great. That's great to hear. And since net metering was brought up, I already made my thoughts known in the order, but I am interested to know what steps are being taken now so that we can resolve any kind of COMAR conflicts that the company and the work group see so that we can include net metering customers down the road.
Yep, so as the commission directed in the order, we, the utilities, are starting to work on an analysis to more quantify what the impact of that difference in opinion is of the PUA. We also have had some conversations about getting the work group back together to start talking about what we could do in terms of, do we need a regulation change? How should we address this going forward? So that, yes, we can get net metering opened up to time of use customers as quickly as possible.
Terrific, good. I think this is an informed group, hopefully, of customers and people who do want to, look at new ways to save energy and advance state policies. So I'll look forward to seeing whatever changes are deemed necessary so that we can include the net metering customers. So thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. I would propose that we accept the tariff revisions for filing, including modifications proposed by staff in its comments dated September 19th, 2022, and direct the company to file clean copies of the affected tariff pages with an effective date of October 1st, 2022. The vote begins with Commissioner Bubar.
Aye.
Commissioner Linton.
Aye.
Commissioner O'Donnell.
Aye.
And Commissioner Richard. Aye. I vote aye. The motion is approved.
Mr. Chairman, item number 6 also consists of revised tariff pages from Baltimore Gas and Electric Company.
Good morning, Mr. Delgado.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. Eric Delgado on behalf of staff. On August 30th, 2022, the Baltimore Gas and Electric Company, BGE, filed revisions to its tariffs reflecting the true-up of the administrative charge under Rider 1, Standard Offer Service. The administrative charge is subject to adjustment in the February, June, and October billing months. The administrative charge consists of 5 components, of which 3 components are being updated in this filing. The updated components are the incremental costs, uncollectible costs, and the cash working capital component. As a result of the true-up, the administrative charge for the residential and Type 2 customers is decreasing by 0.02 mils per kilowatt hour. The administrative charge for type 1 customers is decreasing by 0.06 mils per kilowatt hour. The administrative charge for hourly customers is increasing by 0.16 mils per kilowatt hour due to increases in commodity expenses from rising energy prices. Additionally, since private lighting falls under the Type 1 classification, the decrease in administrative charge for Type 1 results in a decrease in some private lighting rates. The impacted private lighting rates for each is decreasing by 1 cent. The filing also includes modifications to the time of use schedule RD in compliance with Commission Order number 90298. Schedule RD has been modified to include additional non-summer on-peak hours. Non-summer on-peak hours now include the 5 p.m. to 9 p.m. block, in addition to the 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. block. Inclusive of the changes to the administrative charges, the proposed supply rates for RD would decrease non-summer on-peak rates by 11.035 cents per kilowatt hour and decrease non-summer off-peak rates by 0.091 cents per kilowatt hour. Staff finds that BGE appropriately incorporates the changes to the on and off-peak hours into its methodologies for calculating supply rates for the RD schedule. Staff recommends the Commission accepts for filing the proposed tariff changes with an effective date of October 1st, 2022. And thank you. I'm available for any questions.
Thank you. Does counsel for the utility have anything to add?
No, Your Honors, I don't.
Thank you. Any questions? Seeing none, I would move that we accept the tariff revisions for filing with an effective date of October 1st, 2022. The vote begins with Commissioner Boomer.
Aye.
Commissioner Linton.
Aye.
Commissioner O'Donnell.
Aye.
And Commissioner Richard.
Aye.
I vote aye. The motion is approved.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, items number 7 and number 8 consist of revised tariff pages from Delmarva Power and Light Company and Potomac Electric Power Company.
Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Sproul.
Morning, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. Brett Sproul on behalf of staff. On September 2nd, 2022, the Potomac Electric Power Company, or PEPCO, and the Delmarva Power and Light Company, or DPL, collectively known as PHI, filed revised tariff pages to true up administrative charge rates, reinstate the administrative credit, and modify language under the Standard Offer Service SOS rider of PEPCO and DPL's electric service tariff. This is the first administrative charge true-up filing for both PEPCO and DPL since their new administrative charge calculations were finalized following Commission Order number 90035, effective on April 1st, 2022. The administrative charges being updated at this time are for the residential, Type 1, Type 2, and hourly rate classes, and all cost components except for the return and the administrative adjustment are subject to an adjustment every 4 months in order to true up the company's actual costs compared to its estimated costs, as outlined in the Commission Order number 90035. In the instant filing, PHI is truing up for actuals the incremental and uncollectible cost components. However, they are not truing up the cash working capital revenue requirement component. This component is not being trued up because PHI states that they do not track an over/under collection for the cash working capital component of the administrative charge because the cash working capital component is not a GAAP expense that is deferrable to the balance sheet, such as incremental costs or uncollectible expenses. Staff believes that the company should be able to track the over and under collection for this component and update this component for actuals, and notes that other companies such as BG&E are able to do this currently. Additionally, in the instant filing, both PEPCO and DPL are reinstating the administrative credit amount that was set to 0 in the previous PHI administrative charge filings. This administrative credit is being reinstated at this time in order to return to SOS customers long-standing deferral balance amounts of the uncollectible and incremental cost components. The administrative credit will return these amounts back to customers over a 12-month period for PEPCO and over a 3-month period for DPL. This is being done so that the deferral balance amounts are zeroed out by the time each company has their next base rate case and sets administrative adjustment amounts. Staff supports this proposal. PHI also filed sections of each company's tariff that outlines the administrative charge for hourly price service customers. Staff provided updates to this language for both PEPCO and DPL to better explain the components that encompass the administrative charge and to include updated administrative charge amounts. The company is in agreement with staff's provided updates. Staff recommends that the Commission accept for filing the revised SOS tariff pages inclusive of staff's revisions with an effective date of October 1st, 2022. Require the companies to file clean copies of their tariffs, and recommend that the Commission accept the 12-month and 3-month reinstatement of the administrative credit for both PEPCO and DPL, respectively. Staff additionally recommends the Commission require PEPCO and DPL to track the over and under collection of the cash working capital revenue requirement component and require the companies to true up this component at the next administrative charge true up filing and all future filings as required by Commission Order Number 90035. Thank you, and I'm available for questions along with Jamie Smith from technical staff, sitting behind me.
Thank you. Counsel for the PHI Utilities.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. Matthew Seegers appearing for Pepco and Delmarva Power. Also appearing with me today is my subject matter expert, Mr. Tyler Wolverton, our Senior Manager for Retail Rates. The companies have no objection to staff's proposals in their buck sheets. In fact, we work with staff on these modifications, and we will make sure to include them in our compliance filing. And we are available if you have any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Seegers. Do my colleagues have questions? Commissioner O'Donnell and then Commissioner Bubar.
For the administrative charge credit, you said the 3-month and 12-month periods were so that the companies could do a final inclusion in the next base rate case. For DPL, is that the rate case currently pending before the commission, or is the one that would follow that?
That is correct. The 3-month administrative credit is supposed to zero out the deferral balances for the pending approval of the current rate case.
So it's the one that's currently before the commission?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Does the company have any problem with accounting for the cash working capital as alluded to by staff as your sister company does, BG&E?
I'm going to bring up Mr. Wolverton, but I do not believe that we do, Your Honor.
Tyler Wolverton on behalf of Pepco and Delmarva. We do not. No, that's fine.
So you can do it?
We can do that.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner Bubar.
Thank you. That was one of my questions, so appreciate that. Just a clarity on the reinstatement of the administrative charge. If we approve, when would that start to show up on customers' bills?
So the reinstatement of the administrative credit would show up starting October 1st for both Pepco and Delmarva. And then what would happen, so for Delmarva, it would last for 3 months, and then in the Delmarva rate case, the administrative adjustment component of the admin charge is being considered in that case. That will be set, and then the administrative credit would be adjusted as of the rate effective date of the Delmarva, Maryland case to basically provide customers back the amount of the administrative adjustment being considered in the Delmarva case. So there will be an administrative credit beyond this 3-month period. It'll just be a different number than what we're setting for this 3-month period. That's what the administrative credit is sort of intended to do, we collect the administrative adjustment, which sort of sets the overhead costs, if you will, and then we give that back to customers through the administrative credit. So we're just trying to sort of clear that out.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Seeing no additional questions, I would move with respect to items number 7 and 8 that we accept the tariff revisions for filing, inclusive of staff's revisions and its comments dated September 19th, 2022. Direct the respective companies to file clean copies of the tariff revisions with an effective date of October 1st, 2022. Accept the 3-month reinstatement of the administrative credit with respect to item number 7 and the 12-month reinstatement of the administrative credit with respect to item number 8. And direct the respective companies to track the over-under collection of the cash working capital revenue requirement component and require the companies to true up this component in its next administrative charge true-up filing and all future true-up filings as required in Commissioner Order Number 90035. The vote begins with Commissioner Bubar.
Aye.
Commissioner Linton.
Aye.
Commissioner O'Donnell.
Aye.
And Commissioner Richard.
Aye.
I vote aye. The motion is approved.
Mr. Chairman, item number 9 is held over from the September 14, 2022 administrative meeting. It's an application from Octopus Energy LLC for a license to supply electricity.
Thank you. This is an item that was recalled from our earlier administrative meeting. Mr. Jang provided a presentation. There was no representative of Octopus present to answer questions from the commission. There is now a representative before the commission. I will turn to my colleagues for questions, beginning with Commissioner O'Donnell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I guess my questions for the CEO, and if you could give us your name for the record and your position, please.
Sure. Good morning, everyone. My name is Michael Lee with Octopus Energy US. I am the CEO of the US entity.
Mr. Lee, we appreciate you being here today. Thank you for traveling from the great state of Texas. And my questions really are around compliance and consumer protections and the history of the acquired company you had in Texas, Evolve Retail Energy LLC. There were some complaints that were troubling to me, and this commission has been ramping up its compliance enforcement. We created a whole new section in our Consumer Affairs Division. The legislature of Maryland has an interest in this. We were made well aware of that some years ago by questioning from legislators. And we take it very seriously. We have a quarterly report that goes up on our website for retail energy suppliers. And this commissioner is of the belief that bad actors in this space, and I'm not suggesting Octopus is a bad actor, but I want to just verify what the position of the company is. But in my opinion, bad actors in this space threaten our desire and our state policy to get maximum penetration of competition in the residential retail market. And we haven't seen that. We implemented residential choice in, I believe, '99, and we haven't gotten there yet, regardless of our continued attempts to get there. So the competitive forces on the commercial side have worked as designed, but the competitive forces on the retail side have not. And that's for a lot of different reasons, I think. Not the least of which is our standard offer of service is a competitive process in and of itself, and is difficult to do better than in some instances. So some of the complaints, the nature of some of the complaints against Evolve. Well, first of all, tell me, is Evolve still operating, doing business as Evolve, or is it now all Octopus?
We have taken the legal entity and renamed it as Octopus Energy LLC and are no longer doing business as Evolve Energy.
Okay, so there's no component of Evolve Energy in Maryland.
That's correct. Historically, it was Evolve Energy LLC, and we have formally changed the name of the entity fully to Octopus Energy.
Chairman told me this morning you had quite the presence in San Diego. I didn't recall seeing that, but there's quite the PR effort out there with plush stuffed animals and airport welcome signs and all of that. So some of the complaints, one was related to customer service, which is of concern to us, but even of more concern, 3 complaints were related to slamming, and you're familiar with that term in the space. And then 6 complaints referred to rate charges. Let me start with the rate charges. Do you know, Mr. Lee, if those rate charges had anything to do with the polar vortex calamity in ERCOT of 2021?
Yes, let me answer your question. And as a preface of that, we take customer service very seriously as well. We fully understand your concerns around some of the actions that has taken place in retail markets. We believe competition can help make the competitive markets better. especially when we compete on high customer service and innovation within Octopus Energy. Let me kind of address your specific question about those 6 rate questions. A couple of them had to do with the winter storm Uri. And so what happened with that is customers had questions about what their consumption was during that time period. The smart meters were not fully functioning since not everyone had electricity during that time. And I think just beyond that, just want to give a little bit of context about the Texas market in general, since every state is different. Within Texas, customers do not need to go through the retailer to raise questions or concerns. Customers can go directly to the PUC in Texas and file a complaint without the retailer knowing that the consumer actually had a concern about an issue. And so what you see before you are questions and concerns customers have had. Not all of them have actually gone through Octopus Energy first, but all of them were settled in the customer's favor, where we have ensured that we have gone above and beyond to satisfy the customer, even if many of them were settled or ruled that we were not doing anything in the wrong for the customer.
I pulled up on my computer the winter storm ERCOT fiasco, and what popped up in the story that I selected was it was a road sign that said "Don't mess with Texas," up to $1,000 fine for littering. But the caption below that picture said maximum Texas fines for littering pales when compared to short-term utility charges some residents found automatically deducted from their checking accounts. Do your products offer automatic payment plans where the price of electricity went up to $9,000 a megawatt hour during the polar vortex? People were getting hurt really badly with these variable rates. Do you offer that product, and will you offer it in Maryland?
So the products that we offer are conditioned upon what's available in each individual state, and what the rules and requirements are for those states. One product that we have in certain select markets globally is a index product to help customers who select that product. It's not mandatory, it's not default, align their consumption to low prices and high prices. And so we help kind of shift their usage around those high prices into lower price events. We understand that Uri was a very challenging situation. Nobody anticipated having a $9,000 cap for almost 100 hours consecutively. It was definitely a failure of the market during that time period. And so what Octopus did during that event is that we voluntarily capped the bills of our customers at what's the default service rate for Texas, so that way they were not exposed to those high prices, even though that was not in the contract that we signed with the customer. So we voluntarily went above and beyond and capped the exposure for our customers.
We've had our own share of extreme weather events, including polar vortex and derecho here in Maryland. Would you envision a similar activity in Maryland for consumer protections? Not asking for a commitment.
No, we tend to, the vast 99.9% of our customers look for longer term contracts or medium term contracts with price certainty in those contracts. There may be time of use components to those contracts. There may be what we call smart features to those contracts, where we integrate demand response value into the price that customers pay. So we tend to focus on those types of products within the markets that we participate in.
Fair enough. Let me go to slamming. What's your company's view of slamming?
We take that issue very seriously, and so one of the mechanisms that we do to mitigate those concerns from our customers is that we strive to have our sales team to be in-house representatives and in-house employees. The allegations or the complaints on slamming in Texas are actually ones that I can clarify. 2 of them were self-enrollment issues. So a customer came to our website. Let's say you lived at an apartment building that had maybe a dozen or 2 unit numbers within that same address, and those customers selected the wrong unit number mistakenly through that self-enrollment process. So that was an inadvertent gain by us because the customer chose the wrong unit number, and we quickly corrected the situation as soon as we realized that the wrong unit number was selected by that customer. So that was more of a self-enrollment process issue than a actual sales slamming issue. And the third one that you referenced as far as slamming goes is a complaint around delay of bills, actually. So we acquired a bankrupt retailer after the Uri storm. And then when that retailer transitioned to us, we were also in the middle of COVID. And there was about a few-week delay in getting that particular customer's bill issued. And so they transitioned to another supplier, and given the slight delay in mail during COVID, they received a late bill and thought that we re-enrolled them into the product. And so that was not the case, and we actually forgave that customer because of the late bill issuance.
All right, fair enough. I just have a couple more questions, Mr. Chairman, if you'll indulge me. One, what type, so you won't use contracted sales forces, they'll all be in-house, is that right? Did I hear you say that right?
As far as our operations, we strive to go internally.
Okay.
And we really do question when we have to go externally to have sales.
Okay, but you accept full responsibility for any contractual sales force you have employed in the field. What is your business model? Is it door to door? Is it telephone solicitation? Is it kiosk? How do you solicit your customers?
You know, it depends on the market. Like I said, we're a global entity with 3 million customers, and so our execution in various markets depends on our local partners. Within Texas specifically, we tend to do a lot of advertisements on billboards. We do online ads. We attract people to our website to learn about our product, and if they have interest in it, then they self-enroll within the product. We do have some local grocery stores that we partner with, but that is not a primary mechanism for our sales channel at the moment.
And do you have a compliance officer?
We have several people in the organization that do focus on compliance, and again, globally, it just depends on the market. Here in the U.S., we are in the middle of bringing on a head of regulatory, and we also have in-house counsel that support our operations.
Okay, fair enough. Are you familiar with the Maryland Telephone Solicitation Act?
Yes, I am, and at this point, we don't have any plans to do telephone solicitation.
Fair enough. Mr. Chairman, that's all the questions I have, and I want to thank Mr. Lee for coming to Maryland at some expense and to the company, I suppose, and for being here and giving me the confidence I need to support this. But I had to ask some questions because of our increased enforcement activities and attention to these matters. So thank you for being here, sir.
Thank you. As you heard from Commissioner O'Donnell, we do take enforcement of customer protection regulations and laws very seriously. He noted the report card that we issue quarterly. The next quarter ends on Friday, September 30th, and then we will issue a list of those suppliers in the state that have received a meaningful material number of complaints and publicly report those. So thank you again for your questions and your responses. I have no questions. Any additional questions? Seeing none, I would move that we grant Octopus Energy LLC a license to operate as an electricity supplier in Maryland for its customer classes and service territories applied for and recommended by staff. Direct Octopus Energy LLC to provide marketing and training materials to its Maryland operations to the Commission staff and Office of People's Counsel 30 days prior to utilization of the materials in Maryland. And direct Octopus Energy LLC to file notice with the Commission within 30 days of any changes to the information in its application. The vote begins with Commissioner Bubar.
Thank you, Mr. Lee, for those very satisfactory answers. I vote aye.
Commissioner Linton.
Aye.
Commissioner O'Donnell.
Aye.
And Commissioner Richard.
Aye.
I vote aye. The motion is approved with no additional matters on today's agenda. This meeting is adjourned.